Yeah. Speaking of how some people have a severe reaction or severe symptoms and some people have mild symptoms, one thing I've heard is that the dose that a person receives, so for instance, people in healthcare such as yourself that have to interact with patients and are doing testing on a daily basis, would they have more serious symptoms if they contract the virus because they probably received a larger dose? Is that a true thing to say, that if you get a larger exposure that you'll have more severe symptoms?
Gosh, I'm not sure about that, because I think the virus itself is pretty efficient in the sense that once you contract or get exposed to it, and again, you can get exposure through, in a lot of different ways. You know, can be a droplet in the air. In other words, somebody that sneezed or coughed. You could get it off the surface of somebody who'd encountered that surface and put the virus on the surface of plastic or cardboard or metal or things like that. So there's different ways to get it, but it's pretty efficient in the sense that the virus, when it gets into your mucous membranes in your nose, your throat, your mouth, it reproduces pretty rapidly. So I'm not sure that the amount of exposure that you might get at any one time is going to necessarily make a difference.
Okay. That's kind of more of a misnomer, or maybe somebody is hoping that would be the case.
Well, can I just follow up on that, Matthew? I think
sure.
that the reason that is important, though, is that, as you suggested, we probably all need to kind of assume that any exposure could potentially get you into trouble. So that being careful around everything and everybody is really the key to reducing this pandemic. So you can't kind of assume that, gosh, I might have gotten a little exposure, it won't make a difference. That may not be the way to think about
it. And speaking of exposure, so there's a lot of different techniques that people are utilizing as far as minimizing exposure for when they have to go to the grocery store. And you talked about like airborne droplets. What is the possibility that there's like a cloud of virus if somebody like sneezes right before you walk in the store? How long would something like that stay in the air? And then to follow up with that, what is like a true like good precaution for if somebody needs to go to the grocery store or something, like to really actually be safe?
Well, the best way to be safe is not to go to the grocery store, but knowing that we have to, get supplies and groceries, I think first of all, this particular virus, the droplets are, I think, very fine, so they can be suspended in the air, and they may last 2 or 3 hours in the air. So somebody that's been in an area coughing or sneezing could potentially leave that area infected for a while. I think the best way to approach it, I believe, is the most recent recommendation we've heard, which is that when we're out in public, it's probably best to be wearing a mask of some sort that would protect you from that aerosol and that type of virus exposure.
That's another thing too. I've seen people wearing masks, but then I'll also see them touching all around their face, or when they put their mask on, it's like from top down or different ways. And I'm sure as a surgeon, you've put a mask on 1 or 2 times. What's a good way to put a mask on in order to not be just reinfecting yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing of everything we're talking about is hand washing. So again, we can't do that too often. The virus is hard to kill, but this particular virus has a kind of a fatty capsule around it, envelope they call it, and that is broken down by soap very effectively. So soap and water is an excellent way to wash your hands. Hand sanitizer is good, but probably not as good as soap and water. And doing that multiple times a day as a habit is the second thing. And as you suggested, not putting your hands on your face is a good way to help avoid infecting yourself. But if your hands are clean, I think putting a mask on is fairly straightforward. And after you put it on, it's a clean mask. You should be able to wear it a while and take it out probably when you get home. But being out in public, particularly in a store or other kind of a place where you might have exposure, I think is very smart to wear a mask.